As we already know, Southeast Asia is a very unique and diverse region. It comprises of 11 countries, namely Brunei, Timor-Leste, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and then the big ones, which would be Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, and forgetting one, Thailand. So we're talking about these 11 countries in just a short time frame that we have. Might be rather unrealistic. So I've picked up the top six countries that I'm going to go deeper into. And I wish I could talk about some of the other countries, but just keeping in mind the time we have, I'm going to focus on the top six countries in terms of the digital population. So, namely Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, and Vietnam. So, before I dive in, I just want to take some time talking about the motivations of giving in this region. Um, One of the top motivations is just the desire to give back and to be a member of the society who's looking to find ways in which they can help the needy. This generation in Southeast Asia, for the most part of it, is a generation that has come from the lower strata of the society and have entered the middle class. So they understand what it is like to be in a situation of poverty and a situation of not having enough means, and that's why there's a huge class, middle class, which wants to give back and want to be positive contributors to the society. So that's definitely one of the big factors. Of course, there are other factors. There's a lot of prestige and status which is tied to giving back in Southeast Asia, and this is obviously different from culture to culture. There are certain cultures where people like to give anonymously. This is also because in religious countries like Indonesia and Malaysia, where there's a very big influence of Islam, um, according to the Islamic traditions, when you do good, when you give back, you're not supposed to talk about it because it takes away some of the merit in giving. And in those countries, you see a lot of anonymous donations. In addition, there's a lot of family and personal values that are tied into giving. For the most part of it, if you look in Southeast Asia, giving back has been a part of the lifestyle for generations. And this is just one way in which families create that charitable giving aspect amongst their children and amongst their families. So this forms a strong kind of family and personal value as well. In addition, there's personal experiences. There's a desire to drive change. There are personal affiliations where you are part of a volunteer group or you're part of a charity and you want to give back. And religion is definitely a big one. We're talking about Islam, we're talking about Hinduism, Buddhism, or Christianity, religion is definitely one of the big reasons why we see giving. And also, we see majority of giving happening in some of the countries going to religious groups. Whether in Islam, it's people giving part of their income in the form of zakat or sadaqah. A lot of these donations are going to mosques and going to what they call waqf, where the money is used by these organizations and then distributed further to social welfare groups. Or we are talking about Philippines, where a lot of donations are going to the churches. So we'll get into some of this as we go along. But I just wanted to give you an overview of how the top countries that we're going to be looking into in Southeast Asian region, and also what are some of the major motivations of giving in those countries. So before we dive in, one thing I would also like to mention is we cannot ignore, as we are looking at Southeast Asia, the influence mobile commerce has had in this region. In a short span of the last 10 years, we have seen how some of these countries are really leapfrogging even the developed countries and the Western nations in terms of adoption of mobile commerce and mobile internet. And this just goes on to show if you look at countries like Thailand, you look at Malaysia, you look at Singapore, they have really they have really started riding the mobile commerce wave, and in some ways they have. you are seeing that countries like Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam are growing really quickly as more people have mobile phones in their hands. And we will look at some of these reports as we go along. So let's dive into Indonesia, which comprises of the largest population in this region. And it is super interesting to see that, with the population of about 268.2 million, we're already seeing internet users at 150 million. And about the same in terms of the active social media users and mobile social media users. We go one step further to take a look at it, and we realize that the median age is 29.3, so pretty young population. So we see a lot of usage of new technologies, and we are seeing a lot of online behaviors, which are also coming into the giving behavior. So a lot of digital giving has started happening in Indonesia, with some platforms doing really, really well, which I will cover in the later slides. We are also talking about majority of population now in urban areas, and also you can see the literacy levels being pretty high. Let's look at some of the financial inclusion factors in these countries. So you can see about half people have bank accounts, very, very small penetration in terms of credit cards of 2.4%, which really means that these countries have leapfrogged developed countries, and they don't necessarily buy into the concept of credit card yet, and they are simply going directly to using mobile wallets and mobile payments to make e-commerce transactions and even donate online. So that's something super exciting if you are thinking about entering these markets. And in the next slide, you can see in terms of e-commerce activities, we are seeing majority of people engaging with making purchases online. And this is a very good indicator of digital charity. In Singapore as well, when we started early on, we realized that as the e-commerce adoption increased, so did the charity giving online. And that's exactly what we see happening in Indonesia, as a majority of people are getting accustomed to donating, accustomed to buying things online. They're also getting more comfortable with donating online. And finally, let's just look at the concept of how internet users are thinking about their money, how they're storing and transferring money. A lot of it is done through mobile banking, through mobile payments, and you can see a lot of purchases are made through mobile phone. And there's also a rising interest in cryptocurrency in Indonesia as well. So just want to share a few of interesting case studies from Indonesia. So one of them is Kitabisa. It is one of the largest crowdfunding platforms for charities, for religious giving, for healthcare crowdfunding in Indonesia. In just the last, would say, 5 years or so, Kitabisa has really kind of come to the forefront of digital charity in Indonesia, and is working with a lot of organizations as well as individuals to provide a seamless online digital way of giving back. We also have vcare.id, which is focused more on the medical healthcare, and that also kind of shows this whole wave of digital giving. Zakat forms a big part of people donating, whether online or offline. And zakat is really this concept in Islam where you set aside a certain amount of your income to give back to the needy. And by making it convenient, these online platforms are really bringing a lot of donors online. We'd also like to mention that in the CAF World Giving Index, Indonesia was ranked as number one. So that really shows how Indonesia is a country of a lot of generous people, and there are a lot of platforms which are riding this wave to empower people to give back. We've also seen e-commerce platforms like the one mentioned here, Blibli.com, which has started integrating giving back as part of purchasing groceries or buying things online. And one example which I found really interesting was that of Credivo. Credivo recently partnered with Kitabisa, and what Credivo does is it allows you to buy stuff on e-commerce platforms and pay later. And interestingly, Credivo is doing the same thing for donations now. So if you would like to make a donation, you can make a donation now and pay later. I found this very interesting, and it really kind of showed me that culturally how important giving back is in Indonesia, that people are willing to take loans to give back. So that was a very interesting insight. So I'm going to switch up a few gears now and go through Malaysia to begin with. Malaysia, with a 32.25 million population, is an Islamic state, so a lot of religious factors come into giving. There is zakat, where you're giving a part of your income and your assets. There's sadaqah, where you're helping the needy, and also there's waqf, where you set aside money to set up endowment funds to give back to religious as well as educational and healthcare related causes. Looking at the overall population, you can see 30 is the median age, so a lot of young population, and therefore it represents an opportunity for digital giving. 85% of people have bank accounts, 21% have credit cards, and there's a lot of people who are now coming onto the mobile e-commerce. As you can see in this slide, 58% have purchased something through mobile device, 44% have purchased online via laptop or computer. So still more people are on the mobile internet. 66% have used mobile banking. So really, if you are thinking about online giving, you have to think about bank transfers. And then there are people who are now getting onto Bitcoins as well. In terms of the major trends, face-to-face fundraising is still quite predominant in terms of raising funds for charities. We see Greenpeace, WWF, all relying on face-to-face fundraisers. Charitable crowdfunding is on the rise. There's an organization called People Giving, which is backed by a local insurance company, and they are providing a free fundraising platform. There's also new upstarts like Kita Fund, Skola Fund, which are going after charitable as well as educational crowdfunding. Also, Makna is one of the largest charities in Malaysia, which runs annual conferences as well as is the leading thought leader when it comes to donating in Malaysia. So I would highly recommend getting in touch with Makna if you're looking at expanding in Malaysia, as they're really about sharing resources and helping other charities grow. Okay, next up, I want to get into Philippines. So you can see the population of 107.3 million, mobile subscriptions of 124 million, 76 million internet users, and so forth. We're looking at a really young median age of 25, at about 107 in terms of the total population, and 47% of this comprising of urban population. 34% have bank account, only 1.9% have credit card. You can see online commerce is still pretty new, but it is increasing pretty quickly. Almost 90% of people have searched online. 38% have purchased something through desktop or laptop. About 57% have used mobile device. Looking at mobile banking, which is around 54%, looking at mobile payments around 40%. So still an economy which is really catching up onto the mobile commerce. As you know, Philippines is a very social country, so people spend a lot of time on social media networks. Makati City is the city with the highest selfie per capita. So if you walk down the streets in Makati City, you will see a lot of people taking selfies. So a very social country, which kind of shows that there's a lot of opportunity to build tools and to build services which allow people to help others. These are some of the interesting organizations in the space. So Philippines Business for Social Progress, League for Corporate Foundations, Association of Foundations are all organizations that are supporting the ecosystem. There's also upstarts like coins.ph. It allows a platform where people can give back digital currencies to charities of their choice. Also, a very interesting startup called Social Giver, which is about embedded giving. You can shop at different merchants that are on this platform, and the percentage or the portion of the amount you spend goes to charities. Gawa Gives is another charity crowdfunding platform in Philippines. It's still pretty early days with regards to digital giving. However, it is growing pretty quickly, and most of the giving is done through foundations and CSR programs. And slowly, it's changing, and more individuals are getting involved in digital giving as well. All right, so we now go to Singapore, which is where Give.Asia was started, and it's a small country relatively with 5.83 million population, but pretty high in terms of the internet users as well as the mobile social media users. Quite high GDP, one of the highest in the world, and also a median age of 40, so more middle-aged population. And you can see 98% people have a bank account, about 50% have a credit card. So it's definitely a country where you can use credit card or debit cards to accept donations. Also looking at some of the numbers in terms of e-commerce activities, so pretty high in terms of e-commerce as well. With regards to connected money, we are seeing a lot of mobile banking usage, a lot of people using their mobile phones to make payments. And in terms of the ecosystem here, there's organizations like Toadboard, which is part of Singapore Pools, and sharing a lot of money that they accumulate through gambling and passing it to the community projects. We're looking at Community Chest, which is an aggregator of about a couple hundred charity organizations in Singapore, and they run a lot of programs in engaging corporates as well as engaging the public to raise funds for these organizations. Give.Asia is a project that I've been working on for the last 10 years, and it raises about $1 million every month for donations as well as for charities as well as for people in need. You're looking at Raise Singapore, which is a center for social enterprise in Singapore. So there's a rise in interest from individuals as well as corporates to support social enterprises as it presents a more sustainable approach to problem solving in the social arena. Also looking at NVPC, which is the National Volunteer and Philanthropy Center. It runs a platform called Giving SG, which is a big charity donation platform, and also AVPN, Association for Venture Philanthropy Network, Asian Venture Philanthropy Network, sorry about that, which supports a lot of social enterprises across regions. All right, next up, let's look at Thailand and Vietnam, the remaining six countries in Southeast Asia that I'm speaking on. So Thailand has a population of about 70 million, and you can see there's about 57 million people who are internet users, about 50 million who are social media, and 49 about mobile social media users. The median age being 40, and I can look at the literacy rates. In terms of bank accounts, about 82% have bank accounts, about 10% have credit cards, and there are 70% people who have used mobile device to make an online purchase. About 32% have used a laptop or computer to make an online purchase. So you can still see like mobile devices, the one which people prefer to use. And also you can see 75%, around 75% people are using mobile banking. So a lot of bank transfers are made in Thailand when people are purchasing or making donations. And a big percentage are also making mobile payments. I would really like to share with you a few case studies that are super interesting. So one of them is by Toon Body Slam, who's one of the rock musicians in Thailand. He did over 200 kilometers charity run / walk in 2017, and this fundraiser was raising funds for certain medical causes. It raised over 40 million US dollars, or about 60 million Singapore dollars. And that really kind of shows that the power of celebrity in Thailand and how people are looking for opportunities to give back. There are a few crowdfunding platforms and charity fundraising platforms in Thailand, but none of them have really taken off in a big way. So still there's a market for such platforms. Another amazing charity that I'd like to share about is the Man That Rescues Dog. I've visited this charity personally last year, and I was amazed by this operation where Michael, the founder, is providing a shelter for hundreds of dogs and is raising funds mostly through online media. He is one of the one of the big users of Give Asia in Thailand, and really shows that if you are able to tell a good story, as Michael tells a lot of stories of how he does rescue the dogs, and he's constantly uploading these videos on Facebook. You can really build a global audience of givers and monthly donors for your work. Um, Another recent development in Thailand is the country has launched interbank transfers. So you can make mobile payments very easily, and there's a Thai QR payment which has been launched. And you can if you go to Thailand, you will see that people are really leapfrogging in terms of relying on mobile payments rather than on credit cards. And this is something to definitely leverage on if you're looking at collecting donations in Thailand. All right, the last country I would like to share about is Vietnam. Vietnam has a population of about 96.96 million, with a high mobile subscription of 143.3 million, a lot of active social media users, and you can see the population here, like a snapshot of male female population, almost equivalent. 32.6% is 32.6 years is a median age, and we're looking at a high literacy rate. Uh, the bank, the number of people with bank accounts is low at 31%, and the credit card penetration is 4.1%. We're looking at a lot of people using mobile phone again for online purchases, as much as 62%, about 38% using the same via laptop and desktop. So almost half of the population relies on mobile banking. About 39% use mobile payments. And the organization that you should really check out is Lynn Center for Community Development. It is an organization that has built a very strong reputation as an ecosystem builder, promoting donors, foundations, volunteer groups in doing better as and achieving more of their mission. So Lynn Foundation, Lynn Center is an organization that we work pretty closely with in Vietnam, and I would recommend any organization that is entering Vietnam to do the same. As a note of caution, I would mention that Vietnam is a country where it's not that easy to set up an organization, and there are a lot of regulatory challenges in receiving donations, and also setting up an organization requires local directors so I would and permissions from the government. So I would really encourage you to work closely with Lynn Center for Community Development if you're looking at establishing a presence there. With this, I would end my presentation. I would like to thank you very much for your time. Please feel free to give me any feedback that you have, and you can also reach me via my email or via Twitter if you would like to keep this discussion going on. Thank you so much.